Listen close now. Gather round like old souls sharing tales by firelight, because this is the story that echoes through every ballpark, every sandlot dream, every swing that dares to reach beyond the possible. From the cobblestone streets of Baltimore to the cathedral spires of Yankee Stadium, from the whispered prayers of desperate seasons to the thunderous roar of 60,000 voices rising as one, this is the legend that refuses to fade. They called him Babe Ruth, and tonight, as shadows lengthen across the diamond and memory stirs in the summer air, we ask the question that haunts every generation: why will Babe Ruth always be baseball's greatest legend? Picture it first. Baltimore in 1895, a city of steam and sweat, where factory whistles mark time, and children learn early that life gives no guarantees. In the narrow streets and crowded tenements, George Herman Ruth Jr. runs wild, a boy with restless hands and a hunger that gnaws deeper than empty pockets. His parents, German immigrants who tend bar and work their fingers raw, love him as they can but cannot tame the wildfire burning in his 7-year-old heart. He skips school like it's a game, hurls rocks through windows like he's testing the world's patience, steals apples and candy with the brazen confidence of someone who believes rules are meant for other people. But the world has its own rules, and when young George becomes too much for even patient hearts to bear, his father makes that long, silent walk with him through Baltimore's morning mist to the imposing gates of St. Mary's Industrial School for Boys. The iron doors clang shut behind him, and for most children, this would be the end of dreaming. The orphanage is strict as winter, cold as stone, where boys march in perfect lines, speak only when spoken to, and learn trades meant to prepare them for lives of honest labor and quiet resignation. Yet in one corner of St. Mary's courtyard stands something different, a baseball diamond, rough and patched, but real as hope itself. Brother Matthias Boutelier, towering and gentle, with hands that could crush or comfort, watches this wild new boy and sees something burning brighter than rebellion. He puts a glove in George's hands, teaches him to throw with purpose instead of anger, to swing a bat not as weapon but as wand. Under Brother Matthias's patient eye, the boy learns to channel his storm into something beautiful, a curveball that drops like a stone, a swing that cuts the air with the sound of thunder, promising rain. The transformation is magical to witness. By 15, George Ruth can pitch with the fury of an angel and hit with the power of legend in waiting. Other boys stop their own games just to watch him play. Even the brothers gather when he steps to the plate, sensing they're witnessing something that will outlive them all. In 1914, when Jack Dunn of the Baltimore Orioles comes scouting, he finds not just a player but a force of nature barely contained in a 19-year-old frame. The professional world embraces him quickly. The Orioles players, amused by how this giant kid follows Dunn around like a faithful puppy, start calling him Jack's baby, soon shortened to Babe, a nickname that will echo through eternity. His minor league career is a blur of strikeouts and home runs, a preview of wonders to come. Within months, the Boston Red Sox recognize his worth and purchase his contract, bringing him to a city hungry for heroes and tired of waiting for miracles. In Boston, Ruth first makes his name as a pitcher, and what a pitcher he becomes. His left arm is a thunderbolt, his curveball a question mark that batters can never quite solve. In 1916, he posts a magnificent 1.75 ERA, throws World Series shutouts that leave opposing teams shaking their heads in wonderment, and helps deliver Boston a championship that feels like divine intervention. But even as crowds cheer his pitching dominance, something else stirs within him, a deeper hunger that no mound victory can satisfy. He wants to hit every day, every inning, every chance the game will give him. He argues with managers, pleads with coaches, demonstrates again and again that his bat carries magic his arm alone cannot match. This is still the dead ball era, remember, when baseball moves like chess rather than lightning, when home runs are accidents rather than intentions, when small ball and scientific hitting rule the diamond like gospel truth. Then Babe Ruth steps into the batter's box and rewrites the Bible. In 1919, allowed finally to play the field regularly, he launches 29 baseballs over fences that had stood unmolested for decades. 29 home runs in a season when 10 was considered remarkable. when 5 was respectable, when 1 could make headlines. Each blast sounds like a cannon shot announcing the end of one era and the violent birth of another. Fans who come expecting bunts and stolen bases leave their seats having witnessed revolution. But Boston cannot keep him. Financial pressures and perhaps a failure of imagination lead to the transaction that will haunt Fenway Park for 86 cursed years: the sale of Babe Ruth to the New York Yankees for $125,000 and the promise of a Broadway musical loan. History will call it the worst trade ever made, but in 1920, it simply seems like business. New York changes everything. The city's energy matches Ruth's own. Its appetite for spectacle mirrors his gift for the spectacular. In his first Yankee season, he doesn't just break his own home run record, he demolishes it, launching 54 balls into seats that had never seen such violence. Attendance doubles, then triples. Newspapers dedicate entire sections to his daily exploits. Children skip school not to misbehave, but to watch him take batting practice. By 1921, he's reached 59 home runs and a slugging percentage that seems mathematically impossible. Fans arrive hours early just to watch him warm up, sensing they might witness something that will live in their grandchildren's stories. His swing becomes art, a violent, beautiful arc that starts from his shoelaces and ends somewhere in the heavens. His follow-through so complete he nearly spins himself off his feet. When he connects, the crack of bat on ball sounds different, deeper, like the earth itself acknowledging something unprecedented. Then comes 1923 and the opening of Yankee Stadium, the cathedral built specifically to showcase his gifts. The house that Ruth built rises in the Bronx like a monument to possibility itself, its dimensions crafted to suit his particular brand of magic. On opening day, he christens it properly, a home run to right field, the first of thousands that will make this place holy ground for anyone who believes in the impossible. That year, he bats .393, drives in 131 runs, leads the Yankees to their first World Series championship, and establishes himself not just as a player, but as an American institution. His fame transcends sports, bleeds into every corner of national life. He appears in movies, endorses products, travels the country in barnstorming tours that draw crowds larger than political rallies. During the Roaring '20s, when America itself seems drunk on its own possibilities, Babe Ruth becomes the perfect symbol: excess and joy and the thrilling belief that any limit can be shattered. His personality matches his performance. He drinks like Hemingway, eats like Henry VIII, chases women with the same enthusiasm he brings to chasing fly balls. Reporters follow him everywhere, chronicling not just his baseball heroics, but his legendary appetites. The dozen hot dogs before games, the all-night parties that somehow never affect his swing, the charity visits to hospitals where he signs baseballs until his wrist aches and leaves children convinced they've touched something magical. But it's 1927 that carves his name deepest into baseball's soul. Playing alongside Lou Gehrig in what becomes known as Murderer's Row, Ruth embarks on his greatest season, a sustained assault on the record books that feels less like athletics than mythology. 60 home runs in 154 games, each one a challenge to physics and probability. Remember, this is an era of heavier bats and deader balls, of train travel that leaves players exhausted, of playing conditions that would horrify modern athletes. Yet Ruth makes it look effortless. His home runs not just frequent, but theatrical, towering shots that seem to hang in the air forever before disappearing into stands packed with believers. The cultural impact spreads beyond baseball. He becomes America's first true sports celebrity, his fame rivaling presidents and movie stars. Children across the country swing broomsticks in backyards, pointing to imaginary fences before taking their cuts. His name appears in newspaper headlines even on days he doesn't play. He embodies the spirit of an entire decade, bold, optimistic, convinced that tomorrow will always be bigger and better than today. His most famous moment comes in the 1932 World Series against the Chicago Cubs. Already legendary, Ruth faces a hostile Wrigley Field crowd that boos his every move. In the fifth inning, with the game on the line, he steps to the plate amid a storm of catcalls and gestures, toward center field, toward the pitcher, toward destiny itself. The next pitch he sends screaming into the bleachers exactly where he pointed. The called shot that may or may not have happened exactly as legend claims, but captures perfectly the essence of who he was. A man who played as if he could will the impossible into existence. But time catches even gods. The 1930s bring the inevitable decline. A thickening waistline, creaking knees, reflexes a fraction slower than perfection demands. His numbers drop from sublime to merely excellent, and even that feels like failure for someone who redefined what excellence means. The Yankees, building for the future, begin easing him toward the exits. His last season, 1935, with the Boston Braves, provides one final flash of the old magic. 3 home runs in a single game in Pittsburgh, including a mammoth blast that clears the roof of Forbes Field. Retirement brings its own struggles. He longs to manage, convinced his knowledge and charisma could shape a new generation of players, but no team offers him the chance. Cancer finds him in the late 1940s. By April 1948, when he appears at Yankee Stadium for Babe Ruth Day, he is gaunt and weak, leaning on a bat for support. Yet, when he addresses the crowd, his voice carrying the rasp of illness but the power of absolute conviction, 60,000 people rise as one. Baseball is the only real game in the world, he tells them. He dies on August 16, 1948, at age 53, and New York mourns as if it has lost its heartbeat. Over 70,000 people file past his coffin at Yankee Stadium, each carrying their own memory, their own story, their own piece of the legend that refuses to die. What he left behind defies simple measurement. Yes, there are the numbers. 714 home runs that stood as the record for 39 years. A .690 slugging percentage that remains astounding. 2,213 RBIs compiled in an era when protection and opportunity were luxuries. But statistics cannot contain the full scope of his impact. He single-handedly dragged baseball from its small ball past into its power-hitting future. He made the home run not just acceptable but essential, transforming the game from a tactical exercise into an emotional experience. His influence echoes through every generation that followed. Ted Williams studied his swing mechanics. Willie Mays learned his showmanship. Mickey Mantle inherited his power. Hank Aaron chased his records with Ruth's ghost looking over his shoulder. Even today, when a player launches a towering home run, broadcasters still reach for Ruth comparisons. Children who never saw him play know his name, know his story, know that somewhere in baseball's past lived a man who could do impossible things with a wooden bat and an endless belief in his own abilities. In Little League dugouts across America, coaches still tell young players to swing like Babe Ruth, not just for the power, but for the joy, the confidence, the absolute certainty that this next pitch might carry them to glory. So we return to our question, echoing now through the ages like the crack of his bat. Will anyone ever truly eclipse Babe Ruth's legend? Others have hit more home runs, compiled better statistics, played the game with greater precision. But none have captured the imagination quite the same way. None have embodied the pure joy of athletic competition with such infectious enthusiasm. His legend persists because it represents more than baseball excellence. It represents the American dream itself, the belief that greatness lies within reach of anyone brave enough to swing for the fences. In a world that often feels complicated and cynical, Ruth's story remains beautifully simple. A man who loved a game, played it with unmatched passion, and in doing so became immortal. Tonight, as stadium lights flicker on across the country and another generation of dreamers takes the field, his spirit lives on. In every towering home run, every confident prediction, every moment when a player dares to attempt something everyone says is impossible, there he is, still swinging, still laughing, still pointing toward the sky where legends are born and heroes never die. That is why Babe Ruth will always be baseball's greatest legend.